This will unlock the New York Islanders. Patrick Roy has finally brought in his own coaching staff, with the Islanders announcing they have hired 2 assistant coaches. We're going to discuss it on this episode of Islanders Digest and talk about how these 2 hires will fix the Islanders' power play and penalty kill troubles. Really quickly, before we get into that, we noticed that 72% of you who watch these videos have not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you're an Islander fan, you want more Islanders content just like this, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe. It's free. Our goal is 1,000 subscribers before the NHL draft, and we are now just 100 away. So thank you, all of you who have already subscribed to the channel. Appreciate your support. If you haven't already, join this Islanders community on YouTube. Now let's get right into today's news. The New York Islanders have announced today the hiring of Ray Bennet and Bob Boughner as assistant coaches. They will join head coach Patrick Roy's staff, including returning coach Benoit Desnoyers and goaltending coach Piero Greco. Not quite sure if I said Desnoyers correctly. I really struggle with the French pronunciations, but it is really encouraging that Pierre Greco is returning to the Islanders. He's done a good job with the goaltending, and frankly, goaltending has not been an issue with the Islanders for a long time. I don't think he is as good of a goaltending coach as Mitch Korn, but since he was not an option once he left the Islanders, Pierre Greco has been a great goaltending coach. And also, I think it is funny to note that Patrick Roy really does not like to talk to the goaltenders at all. He lets the goaltending coach and the goalies do their own thing, which is funny because Patrick Roy is a Hall of Fame goaltender. But the really big takeaway is now everybody on the Islanders' main coaching staff, the people who are going to be behind the bench, they are all Patrick Roy's guys, which was not the case until now, and is definitely what you want to see if we're giving Patrick Roy a fair chance to show that his system for the New York Islanders can work. Desnoyers was already one of Patrick Roy's coaches. I think he did a really good job. His big role last season was working on the face-off plays, and also how the Islanders handle their strategy in terms of face-offs. And if you look last season, the Islanders were one of the best face-off teams, and really the best we've ever seen them when it comes to the face-offs. As for Ray Bennet and Bob Boughner, they are going to provide the solution, or hopefully the solution, to the Islanders' special teams woes, because as we know, the Islanders' special teams were terrible last season, and honestly, they might have made the playoffs. We might be having completely different conversations this offseason if they were better when it comes to special teams. Now let's talk about their qualifications before I talk about what to expect from them with the Islanders this season. Bennet has been a long-time assistant coach, most recently for the Colorado Avalanche, where he did handle the power play. And while a lot of Colorado fans will complain and say that he is the reason why they didn't go deep in the playoffs, for a long time, Colorado has had a lot of success on the power play. I know some of that is due to personnel, which is why we can't expect too much when it comes to these coaches fixing the Islanders, so I do think there is a lot of work that they can do. He also had 10 years with the St. Louis Blues and 6 years with the Los Angeles Kings. In terms of an assistant coach, this is a guy who has a ton of experience. 24 years. You don't stick around for 24 years unless you're doing something right. This is definitely a good hire for Patrick Roy and the New York Islanders. As for Boughner, he also has a lot of experience, actually has a few years of experience as a head coach for the San Jose Sharks. They did not have a great record during those 3 years where he was a head coach, but still, it shows this is a very qualified individual, especially to be an assistant coach for the New York Islanders. He works primarily with the penalties kill and the defense, which definitely can be improved. Although there is more of an interesting track record, especially interesting considering how poorly the Detroit Red Wings were last season when it comes to the penalty kill. That is definitely one that is getting a little more criticism when it comes to Twitter and just general fan perception. Although I do want to point out, in previous seasons and with previous teams, whether it be the San Jose Sharks or the Florida Panthers, they both had really good penalty kills. So at some point, this is more of an issue with Detroit personnel rather than his ability to coach a penalty kill. Sorry, Detroit Red Wings fans, but frankly, Detroit does not have the best defensive forwards or really defensive defensemen. I know they have Mort Seider, a couple other really good defensemen, but they also have a couple holes which really were contributing to those issues on the penalty kill, and that's not really an issue I think the Islanders are going to deal with. Really quickly, before we get into what to expect with these coaches and the numbers from last season and how they can translate to the Islanders this year, I do want to note Bennet was actually with the Avalanche last season, meaning he has some experience working with Callum Ritchie, which is definitely a plus when it comes to what he can provide for the Islanders. Callum Ritchie is going to be a main priority for the Islanders, develop him the right way, and the fact that Bennet already has a relationship with him and really already knows what he needs to work on and what his strengths are is going to be big moving forward for this offense and in general for the future of Callum Ritchie. That definitely factored into the Islanders making this decision because, again, Callum Ritchie is the top prospect playing for the Islanders next season. You're going to really want to focus on developing him. And regardless on how the Islanders do next season, if Callum Ritchie takes big steps towards being a second or first line center in the future, then this year will be a success no matter what the Islanders' record is. And if they are able to improve the power play and the penalty kill, this record should get better. First, let's talk about Ray Bennet when it comes to the power play. Last season, the Islanders had an absolutely abysmal power play, which means even if he brings them to just league average, this is going to be a huge step up for the New York Islanders. Last year, they had a 12.6 power play percentage. That is honestly incredibly bad, especially when you consider some of the other teams around them. While Barzal was injured for most of the season, which definitely contributes to this, with centers like Bo Horvat, Brock Nelson for most of the season before he was traded away, there's really no excuse for this power play to be this bad. And while, again, when we talk about his success with the Colorado Avalanche having great personnel, the Islanders' personnel is better than what they put up this season. So I'm not expecting him to have a 25.2% power play for the Islanders next season. But if they can bring it up just all the way up to, say, 20th, or just bring that percentage closer to 20%, which is really what you expect from a team. That is below league average, not asking for too much. And you look at some of the teams that were able to accomplish this, teams like the Buffalo Sabres. This is a very reasonable ask. Look at how many goals the Buffalo Sabres scored on the power play. 43 compared to the Islanders' 26. If you can just bring this power play up to league average, they are going to score a lot more goals next season. And also, teams are going to have to play them a little bit differently because when your power play is actually productive, you really can't take as many penalties. Definitely some teams were playing extra aggressive against the Islanders because they knew they could get away with it because the Islanders weren't going to score even if you took a penalty. So that's definitely going to be something we're going to have to look at. And I really do think the power play is going to be an area where we do see a big jump up. Even if it goes from 12% to 16, 17%, that is going to be a huge step. And while you're going to want to see more, personnel also plays a factor into this until the power play personnel is really changed and they bring in a sniper such as Cole Eisenman in the future. Likely not going to see a top power play from the Islanders, but 20% could be the difference between them making the playoffs and missing like they did last year. Now we're going to talk a bit about Boughner when it comes to the penalty kill, and this is a bit more of a mixed bag in terms of the hire. I do still think Boughner is a very good hire. Whenever you're hiring someone who's been a former head coach as your assistant coach, you have good personnel, and this is a big hire for the Islanders. But when it comes to the penalty kill, Detroit really struggled. We talk about how bad the Islanders were last year with the penalty kill. At least they got better as the year went on. Detroit seemed to sink further and further and further down. The Islanders' penalty kill percentage was 72.2%. Detroit had a 70%. Realistically, you want to see an 80%. And people are going to look at this and say, this means this was not a great hire for the Islanders. I disagree. I think Boughner has a lot of experience when it comes to penalty kills. Being honest, I just don't think Detroit had the personnel he needed. And perhaps the system just was not a right fit. The big thing about these two guys coming in for the New York Islanders, both Bennet and Boughner, is they are both guys that Patrick Waugh wanted to fit his system. And in addition to just the power play and penalty kill, just playing 5-on-5, they are going to reinforce the message that Patrick Waugh wants to send to this team, which is going to be so huge. Whether or not this message works, whether or not this style of play that Patrick Waugh is trying to get this team to play, whether the roster is good enough to play that style, it's going to be important to have these coaches finally on the same page. And really, the way the Islanders were set up last year, with Patrick Waugh being on a different page with both his assistant coaches and also Lou Lamoriello, was a recipe for failure. And now we get a chance to see the Islanders properly succeed. I genuinely think that Boughner is easily going to get the Islanders penalty kill to at least be 80%, if not better. Keep in mind, this is an Islanders team who just a few seasons ago had an absolutely dominant penalty kill. And while some players have gone a bit older, things like that, penalty killing is really a thing that's more of a discipline than it is a skill, speed. So there is speed involved in a penalty kill, but a lot of it is just discipline and playing the right way. And that is something you can definitely teach these Islanders players to get back to. You still have a lot of those players who were part of that successful penalty kill. Let me know what you think of these two hires in the comments below. Are you happy with these hires, or do you have some concerns, especially when it comes to what they can do on the power play and the penalty kill? I'd love to know your thoughts. Have hockey discussions in the comments as always below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. This is Islanders Digest. Let's go Islanders.